Hello, everyone. This is Leilani Cawthon with the Learning Council. I'm the CEO and publisher here. I'm also an EduJedi Leadership Society Grand Master, proud to be one. We have with us today quite a few different speakers and panelists, and some of the companies that are here. We'll be showing some videos for them later today, and then also showing or having some of them join us to speak for a couple of minutes at a time. So right now, what I want you to notice on your screen, if you're looking at your panel, there's a couple things there. One, under handouts, there's an agenda and some assessments. Those assessments go with the last talk of the day on motivation. There's also the EduJedi Dictionary PDF. Both of those can be safely downloaded. That EduJedi Dictionary is our gift for all of our attendees. It has a phenomenal dictionary of terms that all of your staff will want to find out about, so they truly understand digital curriculum. There's also the draft digital learning experience standards and the new draft EduJedi instructional design model. Both of those things will be talked about a little bit tomorrow by Chris McMurray. So those are what you have to download. Also notice your questions panel. So you can type in questions at any time. There's also the feature of being able to raise your hand so that we call on you. We want you to feel like you're part of all this. And tomorrow morning, we'll let you use video for the event if you join us for both days. But we're happy to have all of you with us today. So take a break at any time. That's me, Leilani Cawthon. I'm not going to share video right now because we're going to move to other speakers. Keep your browser tab open when you need to leave. So that you can just come back at any time. I know we have a couple of our panelists on with us today. I doubt they can give us the full 5 hours, so they're free to come and go. I see you, David Elliott, you're here. I see Dr. Moreno, you're here, and Dr. StacyPerez is already here as well. We also have Colette Chambers here, and myself and Doug Cawthon, who is with us to help. He's our Chief Operating Officer, and he'll help with the event throughout the day. So some of our sponsors for this particular event were zSpace, Promethean, TIG, Technology Integration Group, Mobile Mind, Twig Science, Schmoop, Insight to Education, D2L, Vital Source, Stay Mobile, Remind, Who Knew It, and Carnegie Learning. And we'll be hearing from all of them later this today and tomorrow. So first up is Dr. StacyPerez, who's the principal from Classical Academy, and she's going to talk about hybrid learning success, setting foundations and defining expectations. So Stacy, I know you're on. You can unmute yourself. You could also share video if you wanted to. Do you want me to give you control of the screen?
No, I think it's okay.
Okay.
I'd like to kind of leave it open, so if there's questions that come up as I'm presenting, or people wanted to go a different directions, or Leilani, feel free to interrupt at any time and redirect me, because I know that I get really excited about what we're doing, and I want to keep this focused for the audience.
Yeah, I'm really excited about what you're doing too, because you've had quite a journey. Do you want to start us off at that, or what direction do you want to go?
Yeah, well, I'll start from the beginning. So I've been with the organization for 19 years as a parent. This is my 15th year as an educator. And 7 years ago, they said I was kicked out of the nest. I was going into leadership, and there was a new online school that they were creating for our traditional charter high school. And I jumped on board after having 4 online degrees. I felt that this was really something that could be tailored towards our high school audience. So I started an online program that had a learning center. That learning center was 6,000 square feet of just open space with 3 or 4 credentialed teachers. That then moved into a blended model, as we found that our students really wanted face-to-face time with the teachers. And that started with just one class. It was an English class. And we said, well, who wants to come into this classroom, we called it. And we couldn't even fit them in the little office. And so we then expanded. After 2 years, we had doubled in size. We moved into a 12,000 square foot historic building in downtown Escondido, which is North San Diego County. And we outgrew that pretty much overnight. I am now in a 48,000 square foot building all by myself, thank you to COVID. But I have 16 teachers that have grown with me in the program. They now each have their own classroom, and they offer what we call workshops, which are classroom-based instruction with an online platform, a playlist for students, which has now evolved into distance learning. So we've gone through a lot of different programs based on what people need. Online changed, they asked us to change the name on March 1st. And if we all know about the March 13th COVID shutdown date, March 1st was the day that we changed our name from online to the Personalized Learning Campus. And that was just a better fit, that we do have a true personalized learning program where students come for what they need. So they could sign up for a workshop if they need it, but they don't have to. They can continue online virtually with the help of those credentialed teachers. So we have a lot of support already built in. So that was kind of just a natural progression. When March 13th happened, there happened to be a rainbow over our building that day. And I took a picture of it and thought, well, this is weird. Things are weird right now. But by noon, we were shut down and we sent our kids home and we said, we'll see you in a couple weeks. This is just going to be a few weeks and you guys know what to do. We didn't provide any new content during those 2 weeks. And our kids, because they knew what to do, they were just chomping at the bit to get back to what they knew how to do. They knew how to set goals. They knew how to mentor with their teacher. They knew how to move forward in a project-based learning scenario. So we didn't shut anything down, but we didn't provide any new content. So fast forward now, we had our shutdown, we provided grades. So we went to spring break through the end of the year and we had high expectations. We had lots of accountability and we were really focused on how do we motivate students who are not sitting in a classroom, who are not making the choices they had made before, to keep them motivated at home. So we got through a virtual graduation and then we were sure we were coming back in the fall. We were sure this was going to happen, but if not, we were ready for it. So we did make that decision. Well, the state of California made the decision for us, and the county and the CDC, that we weren't coming back. And we told the teachers that on August 10th, let's get ready because August 17th, we're ready to meet students. And how are we going to meet them and what is that going to look like? So we really had to set the foundation and we had to define the expectations of what this would look like first for our teachers, because a lot of our teachers weren't comfortable coming back on campus. And then how are we going to roll that out to our students and how are we going to support those parents that are really scared right now? Luckily, we're a high school, so the students are a little bit older. But some of them are taking care of younger students at home, and there was a lot of social media frenzy that was going on. So we really needed to set those foundations early. So I have plan A, plan B, plan C. I think I went through plan Z, where every day my plan was constantly changing. But at some point I had to stop replanning and come up with something that I felt was going to really work and support what we're doing and coming back on campus when we can. Of course, the students are just dying to come back on campus and we want them back. But our program is a 3-day on-campus program, and the other 2 days they had already been set up to work virtually. So that's where that blended model really went into the hybrid model easily. We also have a lot of partnerships with the local community college and UCSD that we had to navigate through based on the decisions they were making. So Palomar and Maricosta, the two community colleges that we partner with, went completely virtual. So classes that we weren't able to have virtual, now we could, and we could align those with the community colleges. And then we reached out to UCSD, the same thing. How are we going to do this in a virtual world, but we still need to make those connections? So fast forward to today, we have repainted our entire building, preparing for students to come back on campus when they can. We still don't have any dates. We have said we'll reassess October 2nd. So we have to still keep that motivation going. And that really starts with, like I said, my teachers, me being positive on purpose, which can be hard. Sometimes it's a scary world and it's very lonely talking to a screen of 48 faces that you're not sure how they're feeling. So lots of check-ins, lots of phone calls, and I'm trying to model that for my team to do with students. So our first 3 days of school, we didn't have any, we didn't have any classwork for them to do or coursework. We actually had one-on-one conferences where we had Zoom conferences meeting with the family, with the student, to set the expectations that we had all outlined, that we will have safety nets. We do expect you to show up for synchronous classes. We will also provide asynchronous and recordings for different schedules, but you have to show up. And how are you going to show up, and what does that look like? And then we took off really hard with the social emotional piece of, we have to have our clubs up and running right away. We're not going to wait until October like we normally would. So having a club rush online, I reinstated my lunch bunch, which used to be a social emotional group that would eat lunch with me, and have an open forum just to talk. We reopened that and had that virtual. And sometimes one student showed up, and sometimes 30 students showed up. Some of our clubs that never shut down, like book club, they continued to meet weekly, but they transitioned to maybe from a book to a movie, or maybe from a fantasy book into a different type of literature that they were interested in reading. So we tried to make everything from day one as normal as it could be, realizing that we needed to meet the social emotional needs and the face-to-face communication, even if that face-to-face was via Zoom. We rolled out student schedules, so all the classes that they had signed up for, we kept on their schedule through our student information system, but our teachers are actually providing the instruction only one day a week. So today's Tuesday, today is, I think, all of our math and science classes. So those classes have over 100 students in them. The expectations from the teacher are, when I'm giving live instruction, your cameras are off, your microphones are off, and we record everything. And then we transition into those other clubs and activities where students can have their cameras on. They can have their microphones on. They can go into breakout rooms and have small conversations. We do provide a lot of trust with them, but we set those norms consistently. When we do come back on campus, I do anticipate it'll be one day a week for each grade. So today's Tuesday, it would most likely be 9th grade. With 16 teachers, that means I would only have 4 teachers on campus, and we'd have smaller class sizes to do that, and not have to do the cleaning protocol by splitting up the day. And then hopefully that would transition back into their regular schedule, so they still see what that looks like. The next step is our college prep. So SATs have changed, ACT or PSAT, our AP classes. It's really important that as a site leader, I'm staying up to date with that. So I think that's where a lot of my energy goes, besides the motivation, the plans, and the accountability, is really staying up to date on what are our colleges doing. And we're still pushing our students to know that they're college prep through our program. So those high expectations.
This is a lot. This is a lot, Stacey.
It is a lot. I'm going to pause for a minute.
It's a lot. It's like I'm exhausted already just hearing all the stuff, and then the keeping upness and everyone on their toes constantly. Could you maybe also walk us through the actual, curriculum programs? So if I'm a student, what did I do choosing what you call a workshop versus something? I mean, how is this working in terms of personalization to cover your standards, basics you have to do? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Definitely. So we have quite a few different options that blend into our personalized learning program. So we do have full independent study. If a student comes to us and they want to be homeschooled by their parent as a primary educator, that's one option. That option does not always lead to college preparation. So that's usually left for something like a foreign language that a parent might already speak at home, and they want to integrate that into their curriculum. We are our curriculum.
So just let me pause you there for a second. So what you're saying is that it's menu based, it's catalog based, which is sort of, so it's partially mix and matchable. You have some maybe commonalities that everybody's got to do, but there's some things in it that allow you to sort of shop and say, I want to do this part this way.
Absolutely. When people ask me a question, I always say yes. we can do that. There's always a way. It looks different for everybody. We have a large population of dancers, and so they will be dancing 6 to 8 hours a day. We actually build that into a course to give them credit so that they can tailor their transcript more for a school like Juilliard. So they're getting all their requirements of the UCs and the CSUs, but we definitely want them to be comfortable knowing that they can apply to schools that are tailored more for them. So yes, definitely menu-based.
That's amazing, because that's a lot of logistics for you.
Yes. I have
Yeah.
one educational specialist. She's an English teacher. She has 185 courses. And that's because she oversees the homeschool component where the parents are keeping the records, but we actually file the ADA for them, and they don't have to file an affidavit. So that's just the cornerstone. That's about 40 of our students out of 500. We are also under the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. We use Summit Learning. So that's our online component of our curriculum. They provide all of our professional development. We're in our 3rd year of using Summit. And it's more than an online platform, it's an actual approach to education. So it feels very different when students first come in, but they find great success in setting their own goals. We say, here's everything you need to do. Now you tell us how you're going to do that. And we empower them to do that through weekly mentoring. So every teacher, every staff member has mentees. I personally have 8 that I meet with every week. It's a 10-minute, usually 10 to 15-minute video conference. It also gives them an adult touch point of somebody they can reach out to if they're like, they need more help, they need more guidance, they need to change their schedule. Those conversations are usually not academic. Those conversations are, hey, you know, how's your dog? What'd you guys do this weekend? Boy, this is really a tough time. You know, what are you guys having for dinner? And they are getting to know us and building that trust through we use Zoom or Google Meets so that they see that face-to-face, that when they do come on campus, they will actually know somebody. And we had that before the shutdown, and we continue to do that. That's very, very time consuming. So our staff members actually do that in the afternoon. They start about 12:45 until 3, that they're meeting those one-on-one conversations. We actually can put those into the learning platform where we also see their academics as well. But meeting their needs, meeting where they're at, maybe getting a counselor involved if we feel that there's a student that's struggling a little bit. I stay up to date on all the data, and then I push that out to the teachers as they need it. So yesterday I spent probably an hour just sending out a message saying, hey, keep your eye on these 3 students when you meet with them this week. Find out what's going on. Is there something we can do to support them? So that's our curriculum. And then, like I said, we also are articulated with the community colleges. So we have classes that we actually teach on our campus that they're getting community college credit for, as well as a partnership with UCSD. And same thing, we have a marketing career technical education strand that we've partnered with them through a grant to provide college level classes that are actually taught by UCSD, but overseen by one of our instructors.
It's amazing. So essentially, let's say in your job right now, Stacy, you've kind of become sort of that analytics hub, which is different than a lot of schools run. You know, the teachers are the quote unquote hub for the analytics. Is it so you're watching, say, these 3 students need some extra help, and then here's what's going on with their dual enrollment, whatever they're doing. Do the teachers also all have their own dashboards? What's happening?
Yeah, they have a dashboard, but it's a level down from mine. So I'm looking at analytics such as how many students mentored with their teacher this week, how many students, what percentage set goals, so that when I meet with my team on Friday, I can say next week we're focused on this. So I'm able to transition in our PLCs how we focus on different areas. I was able to send out a celebratory message to 6 of the teachers that are mentors, and none of their students are behind right now, which either they have a unique caseload of 30 students or they're really staying on top of that one-on-one, hey, how can I help you? Let me get you in touch with the right person.
This is amazing. But essentially the model that you're in is a unstructured structure. It's a service-based model.
Yes.
rather than a bureaucratic structure of kids moving class to class, grade to grade.
Right, which can be a stressor to some students that come into the program and their parents want more structure. And we're trying to tell them we're teaching them how to structure themselves so that when they leave us and they go to college or they go into a career, they know how to set their goals. We're speaking the same vocabulary. We know where we're going, what tools we need, even things like transportation or making a plan. Like, we're using that vocabulary constantly with our students to build them up. And then at the end of each semester, which I don't know if we will have at this time, we have what's called an academic showcase. And students come in and they present a project they worked on where they missed the mark. They didn't get a perfect score on it, but they want to raise their grade. So they tell us a few things when they come in, and it looks like a big science fair. First, they'll tell us what habit of success, and there's 16 habits of success that we intertwine with our curriculum. What habit of success did they use to come to the conclusion of this project that they could make it better? So one might have been that they procrastinated. And so what would you do next time not to procrastinate? Which habit would you use? And then we have them talk about how they could make this a perfect project, where maybe they didn't set their goals on time or they didn't take the feedback the teacher gave them into their final product to present that. And so through a public speaking method, which they don't realize they're public speaking, they're actually presenting to us how to do it better and teaching us. They get really excited. They dress up for it. It's kind of like a job interview. But their friends are all there doing it. And in that, we give them 5% extra credit on that project. So if they were at an 89% and now they bumped it up to an A, they're so proud of working through that process, even reaching out to the teachers to say, yeah, how can I make it better? So just that feedback before we give a final grade.
Yeah, this is, I'm just envisioning what a heavy lift this would be for the normal large public districts, right? To even come close to this. So, you know, because you have a lot of students, unfortunately, that are inculcated, I would say is the word, into structures that do something to them, right? Like they're just supposed to arrive, like attendance is the thing. And then they're shunted along that manufacturing line. So over here on your side of the fence, where things have altered into hybrid all the way to personalization, they get to set their own goals. They're running themselves with personal responsibility. This is a very heavy lift. And most public education is shoved into it anyway right now because they can't do all synchronous learning. People Zoom fatigue, and after 2.5 hours, which is what the science says, is the limit for keeping people on Zoom meeting. Even though today we're going to have a 5-hour one, people come and go, so it's okay. It's not all required attendance. Right? So here you have, this big thing. If you had to be in their shoes, Dr. Perez, where would you start? Where would you even start? Because you got to get people to understand, first of all.
Yeah, I think they have to start with what they have. So the first thing I looked at was, what technology tools do I already use? Let's not introduce something new right now. We use Schoology as our communication method, so we wanted to make sure we continued that communication in that method. A big thing was that I had to step out of my comfort zone. Although I love public speaking, I don't desire to make videos. I don't know why. So I had to step out of that and let the families know, I'm going to send you a weekly message. It's going to be personal from me to you, so you see how I'm doing and you can hear my voice and hear where we're at in the process. So those were two pieces of technology that we continued to use. Luckily, my site had already been using Zoom. We were familiar with breakout rooms. The rest of our organization went to Google Meet, which they found out wasn't as reliable, didn't have the breakout rooms. And then we actually went into Schoology, where they had Big Blue Button, which is a conference tool. So I think you have to look where you're at with your current technology tools and implement them better. So when we said, well, what do we're not doing the best? Well, we're good at flexibility and we're good at scheduling and we've got the technology tools. Now let's not introduce something new. Let's not do that right now. You're right though, Leilani, they've been forced to do it. I think having a kindergartner online for 3 hours is way too long. I would love to bring our students back and not have technology in front of them. Is that doable? Possibly. It's just looking at that scheduling. Also with the scheduling and the flexibility, how do we have the accountability and the connections? I mean, is it just seeing that face every day, or is it really having conversations? And I know that we've talked about that many times where you have to have that face-to-face, even if it's virtual. You have to have a voice. You can't just put a video in front of a student and think that you're going to reach them. And then once you have those tools and you have that schedule, what's ever changing is what's your delivery. How are they going to expect that delivery? Synchronous. We're synchronous once a week. So we gave them a scheduled tool to use. And my freshmen today are online for a maximum of 2 hours. And then they know what to do. Tomorrow they're only on for an hour, and Thursday they're on for an hour, and that covers 4 of their classes. Then delivering them of what are you going to do for your PE? We're in a shutdown, so maybe you need to clean the house today. Providing them different options for community service. So how we deliver all of that, and then that expectation of you will come to your mentoring meeting. That's 10 minutes out of your day. But the rest of the day, what's that going to look like? What's that going to feel like? And how are you supporting others at home? How are you helping your mom and dad? How are you helping your siblings? That can be community service. So we deliver the rigor and the content, but then the rest of the day really needs to meet their needs.
Yeah, and I'm just, as I'm envisioning what that would be like, I would have loved that myself, Stacy, like when I was younger. But I have to be honest. I went to a public high school in northern Minnesota, and when the bell rang, I would just go to my next thing, right? Like I think as a junior high school person, I literally had very little concept of time. I just went along with the herd. The herd got up and wandered, went to Hollywood and the next thing. And it was almost like, physical memory where I went next, right? So how's this really work? I mean, how involved do the parents have to be to clock the kids so that they arrive, when there's that virtual togetherness? What's your experience with that?
It's all different levels. We definitely say that the communication is important, and if somebody's not showing up, our first of course we go to the student, but then next we do go to the parent. Because we don't count attendance and students could come to campus. When we check our statistics and our data for that, 92% of our students showed up every day without taking attendance. So, I mean, I would challenge other schools, what if you take that element away? What if you say, you know what, I'm here for you. I want to know you. I want to communicate with you. That's back to that setting that foundation. Are you going to show up? And they do. They do show up, and they do tell their parents, I need a ride. I have to get to school. We've built that community, and it's part of our culture, but we're not demanding it. So at the end of the day, you're responsible for those A's and B's if you want to get them. We're here to help you every step of the way. And it just changed the dynamics. We do ask the parents to set up their parent portals. They're getting twice weekly text messages. And it's not a message to say your student's getting an A. It's a message to say, hey, your student just learned about this president. Ask them this. And it gives talking points. And the parents feel this relief of the stress of them that they're responsible for what their students are doing, because their students are earning it. They're earning it because they want to be successful. I've never met a student in 19 years, or I'm going to say my entire life, that didn't want to be successful. I mean, that's just human nature. And so when we pull out the elements of that constraining structure, it changes our students. I have 0 discipline problems because they don't have to be here, but they get to be here. And I tell them that every day. I'm like, I don't have to go to work, but I won't get paid, but I choose to be here. I choose to be here because I want to do what I feel I've been called to do. And so providing that tool to the students helps parents. And like I said, it really builds that community and culture and the consistency that the students really stick with. And if it doesn't work for them and they need more structure, we find that out pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm mindful of the fact that, like I said, that inculcation of being part of the herd in these really large public and not having personal responsibility, I think is a really heavy lift. There's a lot of motivation mojo that's going to have to go on with more and more public as they start to try to come back in to do virtual. Some of them haven't quite gotten there yet. They're looking at early October. So there's a lot of heavy lift there. So what I want to do right now, Dr. Perez, is I want to stop you for a second, give you 4 minutes to breathe, show a couple of videos, and then come back at you. Is that okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, good.
I just got done with a demonstration on twig science and I am so excited about it. I absolutely love how engaging this program is. I think there's actual learning happening within these lessons and it's not just there for entertainment, which I kind of feel is happening with our current digital supplement we're using. So I really think the students are going to get more out of this science program. I also love how the assessments are embedded within the lessons. So I think the students will put more into them and won't feel that extra pressure when you tell them, oh, here's an assessment after the lesson. A lot of teachers avoid teaching science because it does take a lot of effort to prepare for science, but not with twig science. It's all right there for you and easy to push out even during distance learning. So I absolutely love twig science and I'm super excited about it.
Organizations are utilizing tablets, laptops, and phones around the clock to improve employee and student outcomes. But what many fail to consider are the hidden costs and consequences associated with time-wasting mobile device management, an increased risk of data breaches for devices that aren't physically secured, and device downtime due to uncharged, forgotten, lost, or broken devices. That's why we've created the Fuel Tower, powered by lockncharge Cloud, a complete hardware and software solution to efficiently charge, store, secure, and manage workflow for mobile devices. The Tower and lockncharge Cloud eliminate many of the manual processes for check-in, check-out, break, fix, loaner devices, or any other shared device program. The Tower also provides secure, on-demand, or overnight charging. Streamlining these processes will save your employees and IT teams considerable time every year. The key to these efficiencies is found in the lockncharge Cloud platform. Lockncharge Cloud enables administrators to control towers from one centralized web-based portal, no matter the location of the administrator or the location of your towers. Administrators can manage who is allowed to access specific towers and bays, and can cascade settings to multiple towers at once. Organizations can take device management to the next level by utilizing Cloud API and webhooks to integrate lockncharge Cloud into external or existing IT infrastructure. An optional network kit allows you to add a network switch so that you can enable device updates and re-imaging while securely stored inside the Fuel Tower. This smart charging tower and cloud platform is designed to keep your mobile workforce working. How will you save your organization time and money by leveraging a Fuel Tower? Contact lockncharge to learn more.
Okay, and we're back. Okay, good. So I just didn't want to have you just, get dry mouth, keeping on talking for, for a full hour. So cool. So it looks like we've sort of taken you off your task here originally of what you were trying to do, which is talk about setting the foundations and then defining expectations. So can we go back a little bit to setting the foundations? Like, you've talked a lot about like the motivation and then the schedule and then also the curriculum. Is there anything else in those parts?
I think a challenge was that I'm also within an organization. So I'm within a district, but I'm an independent study charter school within an organization that has 7 sites. So balancing that and setting that foundation, I think I would do things differently, but there is some structure within that. And when we're talking about bigger districts, I think that can be the same struggle in the foundation setting. If it's a TK through 8 school, if it's a junior high or middle school, if it's a high school, there's different requirements, but really the same outcome. Where are we trying to get our students? What are we trying to do for them, to help them, to guide them? And then also realizing that they're getting a different possibly story at home or a different expectation at home. Where are you setting up your home desk? Are you in your pajamas? So helping our parents with those foundational kind of guides, I think at any site, at any school, at any age is a good place to start. That doesn't mean, I think we have to let go of the control at some point. I can't always control what they're doing, but I can definitely show up and provide the best educational possibilities for them. And then we have a saying that we say, don't be the same, be better. So when someone comes and they go, but at this public school, I'm like, well, we are a public school. So I'm constantly kind of fighting that battle internally and externally of, it's okay not to do what everybody else is doing. Are you doing what's best for your students?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, we're both in California. I'm up in Sacramento. I think there's obviously rumblings, if not gathering mobs for alteration of requirements at the district level. It's already happening in other states where they're like, this attendance thing, this has got to change. The seat time thing, that's got to change. Even moving to a non-attendance thing like what you're doing. But the transition steps they're in the basement, for a lot of those bigger districts. What are you already hearing organizationally, sort of, because you're part of a larger entity in a district, I'm not going to say what's the water cooler talk, because you're not nobody can be at water coolers together. But what are you hearing so far?
I think change is on the horizon. I feel unlucky that it happened this way, but I feel lucky that we see that the higher ed, so the universities, the colleges, the trade schools are taking it to the next level. Let's remove the testing features to say that all students are equitable or equal if they take the same test and score differently on it. I've never been a proponent of that, but what skills, we call them cognitive skills, but what skills can we give students to ensure that they are going to be successful later? And that looks different for everybody, and I think our schools have to look different. I think they have to have a different feel of, can a student raise their hand and go to the bathroom? Do they need that? Does every student need the same textbook? Well, we need to give them the content. How are we going to deliver that? When we originally said turn off your cameras in Zoom, a few teachers said, but how do I know they're paying attention? And I said, well, how did you know they were paying attention in your classroom? It's classroom management. It just looks a little different. So I think we have to embrace change and know that it's not going to be the same for everybody. And that might feel a little uncomfortable at times. And that's okay, because when you get to that graduation, or you get to that first job interview, or you get that couple that got married and had a baby, you see a different story because they're all going to grow up. We know that, but what tools do they have in their toolbox is I think what we need to think about versus the content that that we're providing them, we're teaching them, are they receiving it, and how are they receiving that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and I think it's not going to look the same. I think here's the thing is, like you said earlier, the whole of education is not going to look the same as before the quarantine started in COVID-19. And one of those reasons, one of the most significant underlying reasons is the exposure by all parents everywhere to online. Either hated it or loved it, depending on who was doing it somewhere in the nation, or have decided that there's just too many things they disagree with and they want out. So when you're dealing now on your side with this, fully sort of personalized pathway, still normalized, you still have norms in there. What kind of choice do you see happening with parents that might be, they're not going to do X because of religion or Y because of some other reason? What are you seeing as that sort of thread already?
Well, you said the water cooler talk. I think that is kind of the water cooler talk, that some parents didn't realize how inept they are to raise and teach their children if they're given some tools. Mm-hmm. And what was going on at school? What was happening? Was it, school, we are teaching students how to go from place to place. We are teaching them how to communicate with others. There's a lot that happens in addition to the academics that I think now they're finding that at home changes a little bit. And especially if the parents have been working remotely, they might have a job that looks different than it did pre-COVID, and that education might look different too. What if we could give these options of you go to school 3 days a week for the delivery and for learning those other expectations, but you have time, quiet time, you have alone time, you have community time. I think that looks different now that we've been forced into that model, whatever it looks like. Yeah. That every family can look different as well. When I started homeschooling 19 years ago, people thought I was crazy. Like, what are you doing? You're a corporate accountant. And I said, no, I need to raise my kids. And some days that meant when Mario didn't want to do math, we went to the grocery store and he helped me use coupons. When Pedro didn't need to learn something that I thought he needed to learn, I taught him Latin. Lots of different options that now as young men, I see that it was the most amazing option because they're both doing what they love, and it shows, and they're healthy and they're happy. There were struggles along the way, and that's okay. That's just like parenting as well. Running a school is a lot like being a parent. How do I match everything for 500 students? I can't. Sometimes that means that somebody needs to sit on the floor and somebody needs to run around the building. I think they're finding that at home as well.
Well, yeah, because any parent will tell you if they have more than one kid, their kids are totally different. So every child is different. It's funny because I wrote an article a long time ago, Stacy, that talked about schools are the only industry that are dealing with the living lightning of life, right? Other than maybe healthcare, but still healthcare looks at you as a machine, right? Like, how does the machine function? Is it functioning right? Does it have oil in the right places, and, mechanical. But when you're dealing with the intellectual living lightning of life, it's a totally different scenario because you're also shaping personalities and getting the mix correct so that those really social little kids, students that are social animals versus the ones who are rather reclusive and would rather have their nose in a book, you got to cater to them all. And I think you've struck upon the model that is working. It's the instituting it in a broad scale that becomes the real heavy lift. So I like your advices about, start with what you have, right? Like what can you do now? And I think pretty much the whole nation is doing that, except if they're hamstrung by the fact that half their teachers just quit or retired early, as is happening in some parts of the nation, or they run into something else, so I'm going to start, now I got to restart. And they running into logistics things like, oh, the governor just said, no, we're not going back this week like we thought. So cancel everything. And then it's a flurry. It's a madhouse. People are losing their minds. Yeah, so we've got all of that happening at once. But tell me a little bit more about what you wanted to talk about in terms of defining expectation, because when you just said what you did about your own children, they came out their own person. And I think ultimately it boils down to that. It's like, what's good for the individual student is a different way of thinking than what's good for the norm of all students.
Yeah, and I think as a parent, you realize expectations can be different for different students, for different learners. The expectations I had for my oldest to learn 5 languages was not the expectation I had for my youngest, who wanted to build Legos all day. But the expectation was, you'll get up, you'll show up, you'll help, you'll be kind. And we can do that with our students as well. Yes, you come to school as an institution to learn. That's an expectation. You're now at home in a pandemic. We had no control over that. The expectation is you still need to learn. We can't just shut that down. So even if schools and districts are to transform, taking that base of what you already have and then looking at what are the avenues how we could make this different and better for the student. I don't think having the same requirements for every student is ideal, but there are expectations that are going to be the same. Expectations are that you are going to finish high school. That's an expectation I had. What that looks like as far as your goals, as far as your gifts and talents. If you want to get up in the morning and play drums where your brother's going to get up and he's going to do his math, that's okay. But at the end of the day, we both need to finish our math.
Yeah.
And that's where I see choice. And we give those choices in the younger grades. If you look at a kindergarten classroom and we're saying, are you going to go to the circle or do you want to do color time? We're raised with that. And somewhere we stop doing that. We stop saying there's choices and options and start, I don't know, do we start spoon feeding them? We do it as parents and we do it as educators of, well, you have to get all these credits to graduate from high school, so you need to do this right now. But if you're not ready to do that emotionally or developmentally, we can't push them. Can we slow it down? Does it need to take everyone 13 years? I don't know. Could somebody do it in 10 years and someone do it in 15 years? Is that an option? It's not. It's not because of the way the government has set up education.
But I think that's mutating. I actually really perceive that the underlying, I'm going to use the word thread again of what you're really talking about, is that the trends towards diversity inclusion are going to go deeper into the true individual, right? Like the only job of education shouldn't be normalizing, except for a number of, just a couple things, like, like you said, kindness, manners, a little bit of manners is important, but the only expectation that should be there for education should be helping you become you, fully actualized. Like a child who's just really into Legos is probably mechanically minded. And there could be tests that help determine that mechanical mindedness, and that child is set with their own sort of discovery pathway to do that. Now, technology allows all of those things to happen, but you're right, organizational structure wise, we're not really set up for that. And but I think that next level of conversation, once we get through this, right, where we're literally in the middle of mutation extraordinaire on a scale nobody's ever seen before, then there's going to be a deeper conversation where it goes into like, what are we actually teaching? Like, why are we doing that? Like that's been a subject we've taught since, man began and the invention of the wheel. So now maybe we don't need that same thing for every single student. Maybe those are wrong assumptions. Maybe every assumption we have is wrong. Maybe we need to start over. So I think it'll go there. And I think that's what the next level up is going to be. But you're already seeing some of that. Anything else you want to talk about with regards to that?
Just kind of a final note with that. I think when we remove those barriers that and allow students, like you said, if he's more of an engineer and he's more of a musician and they're in different avenues that would take them into life, they will forever have a love for learning. So if you let that kindergartner build Legos and do amazing things that he can do with his hands because that's what he's good at, he will continue the rest of his life to have that love for learning because it was never squashed. He was never told he had to do it a different way. He was never told he had to fit into a mold. We remove those molds, and it's a huge lift. But we've been able to do it, and we've watched students just find passions in areas that they never thought they could go because they were tied into what society said they had to do in a traditional educational system.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think that the next level of conversation we're going to be having, and I would say this is going to happen in about 3 to 5 years, where everything is going to be pointing towards a much deeper level of pull those pins out of some of those assumptions that are embedded into the actual curriculum. You know, like, why are we doing this? Why does everybody have to have calculus? You know, a lot of kids aren't any good at it. They didn't even want to take it. Right? It's like, why didn't they get more of something else that they did want that is part of their career path? You know, so I just really, you know, plus I think coding is going to be part of everybody's life anyway.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that are going on there that are, you know, the shifting sands. But the last great mutation that the United States went through was from the agrarian age to the industrial age, and the industrial age built the present model. This model that we're in today in mutation is mutating to the technology age, which is a networked model and uses a lot of back-end intelligence, like what you're doing, looking at dashboards. Hey, these 3 kids need help. That's like SWAT teaming, you know. We could never do that before. But that goes even deeper with really advanced AI in the next several years and true logistics, kind of like what you and I were talking about before this webinar started about, you know, the multi-levels of calendars and the pacing guides. They're all still, you know, Google Docs, and it's messy. When we get to the level of logistics that Amazon uses and UPS and FedEx to get, you know, a box anywhere in the world and, you know, 24 hours, that's the level of logistics that will really be transformative. So it's sort of going to be a double, you know, sided thing, because the humanity is what's needed. So the careful choices, the dogmatic insistence on a human interface, while, you know, further and further embedding those advanced technologies, is really is sort of the game plan right now that I'm seeing. Because you stumbled across some magic, Stacy. It's like you went to personalized learning pathways, but you refused to give up the human interaction.
Yeah, and that organically happened, I think. And leaving that time, our students have time for discovery because they're not cattle called. They're not put into a classroom for 60 minutes with a 5-minute passing period and a lunchtime that's 40 minutes. They have that time to say, right now I need this time to do this. And yeah, maybe I did fall down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos, but I'm really interested in that. And look what I learned from it. We don't give them that time to do that anymore.
Yeah, we really don't. We really don't. It's kind of an interesting thing. But, you know, this quality, I think, is also going to go up of interactions that the kids are probably having, because I'm sure they talk to each other as well. There's friendships made. There's side things done, which are probably better than those anxious 5 to 10 minute windows trying to get to your locker to get your other textbook in a large school and then make it all the way down 3 halls and up 4 sets of stairs to the next class, trying to have a social life in that moment, or at lunch, was hard. I think the old construct in a lot of the big schools where you know, there was reputedly a lot of social life wasn't always true. It was anxious, fraught moments with, you know, already something else underway. So now we have a different sort of quality there. So we're running up on the end of the hour. Any last comments you want to make? It's been such a great conversation. I'm so delighted that you're doing what you're doing. So proud of you.
Thank you. No, I just welcome any questions. If anyone wants to reach out, definitely send me your questions, or if you want to have further conversations. We've definitely blossomed nationally as far as sharing what we're doing. And I'm as transparent as can be. I don't, it's not always a perfect model because it is personalized learning, but I believe that we have something that's really working for a lot of our students, and that if I can help somebody else pave that way, I'm more than happy to help.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, thank you very, very much for being with us today. And I'd ask you to stay if you want to learn anything else from us for the rest of the day. But this next hour is going to be some lunch and learns from some of the companies we've picked out as like head of the herd, you know, the coolest ones. Part of what's actually happening right now, Dr. Perez, is that a lot of these companies have stepped up. They've gotten the funding needed to do some majestic new things because of the demand, or they're just killing it with new orders to fulfill because everybody had to go digital. So some new stuff is on the scene. But again, thank you so, so much. You're free to move about the building. So, masked when you're outside. Take care, and thank you again so very much for your help and being with us today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to stay tuned. I don't have a board meeting till 3:30, so I will be here for the duration of the day as well. I really appreciate you including me.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks again. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.